Hi, I'm a licensed professional counselor in the states of California and Ohio, and a substance use disorder counselor in the states of California and Ohio. You can read my licensure information below in the caption. Anyways, I just wanted to talk briefly today. I've been talking a lot about polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges, and wanted to specifically touch upon why it's important to match your coping skills with where you're at on the polyvagal diagram, which I'm going to have behind me here. The importance I'm going to basically spell out from just a personal example. I will be the first to admit that I have experienced some trauma in my life. I don't need to go into the dirty details with all of you because I don't know you personally, but I will say that I have experienced trauma, and a year ago I had a traumatic event at work which triggered a lot of previous trauma for me, and I had some other stressors going on at that time that it elevated me into a dorsal vagal state. When I was trying to use my typical coping mechanisms that would be at a sympathetic state, they literally did not work. I was stuck in a functional freeze, and it was severely impacting my ability to be able to interact with some people, and I was in a very bad place. So I actually had to figure out what's going on. Why aren't my coping skills working for me? And that is when I discovered polyvagal theory, and actually discovered having to do somatic coping skills to manage my stress. And it was when I was actually able to do somatic coping skills, including bilateral stimulation of my brain, utilizing some exercise, stretching, deep breathing, even tapping. For me, I did not do any personal EMDR, but I did do some of the things that are considered somatic coping skills, and they did help bring me back into a sympathetic range where then I could utilize what I typically used as coping skills. So I will tell you that this stuff actually works. You have to match your coping skill with where you're at on the polyvagal diagram. If you're in a dorsal vagal, you're going to have to use somatic coping skills or EMDR by a therapist if that's kind of where you're at. If you're in the sympathetic range, DBT skills, distracting activities, self-soothing activities, anything that you can do in that level will work to kind of help bring you down. If you're going to try to do journaling and anything that's going to involve any part of your brain to actually think clearly when you're in a sympathetic state, it isn't going to work. You have to be in a ventral vagal state for you to be able to utilize anything that is REBT or CBT related in terms of journaling, reframing, affirmations, anything to answer any sort of cognitive types of questions. You have to be in a ventral state where you're calm, where your brain can think clearly. If you are escalated, your brain doesn't work. You're stuck. So please try to think about where you're at and use the coping skill that's going to help bring you back to where you need to be. And anyways, if you liked the video, please like, please subscribe. And all of my information, like I said, is down below if you want to figure out who I am, what I do, what I'm trained to do, etc. Have a blessed day.